things that I hate today. I'm going to show you two police videos. I hate both of these police videos, but I want to explain why I think the media jumps on one a lot more than they jump on the other. So there's one police video that comes courtesy of this department. I believe this is in Georgia. There's a police officer, and he pulls over a woman, and she won't get out of her car. It's in Cobb County, Georgia. She won't get out of this back in July 2016. It just broke, I think, yesterday. And she won't get out of her car, and she says, and he says, why don't you take your phone? I'm arresting you. Why don't you take your phone and call up your, and I want you to call up your boyfriend or something to let them know that you need to be bailed out. And she says, I don't want to take my hands off the steering wheel because I've seen all the videos. And apparently she's a drunk driver, and she was drunk and kind of belligerent and wouldn't get out of her car or anything. And so the cop jokingly says, well, you got nothing to worry about because we only shoot black people. Right? Okay, so idiot. Terrible thing to say, obviously. But does he mean it literally? I mean, I'll let you watch the tape. It doesn't seem to me that he means, yes, we literally go around every day shooting black people. It sounds to me like he's got a drunk woman in the car who's being an idiot, and he thinks he's joking with her to try and get her off her guard. And so he says this stupid thing sarcastically like, you got nothing to worry about. We shoot black people. Ha, 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 ha. Right? The same way that Steven Crowder and I make Jewish jokes. Right? He's making a joke about how cops are racist. That seems to me what this actually is. He got fired over it. Here's the actual tape.
Go ahead and call them. I'm going to take you to jail, and I'm going to impound the car.
Before that, can you please open?
No.
I can't call them if you don't open the door.
Why can't you?
Because I will not put my...
Use your phone. It's in your lap right there.
I just don't want to put my hands down. I'm really sorry.
You're just really wrong.
No. I've just seen way too many videos of cops.
But you're not black. Remember, we only kill black people. Yeah, we only kill black people, right?
Okay, the right at the end is the dead giveaway that he's being sarcastic. But it doesn't matter. Obviously, you can't say this sort of thing because that's asinine. But he ends up being fired, and this is supposed to be some sort of indication that the police know they're institutionally racist. If I guess you can read it that way. That's not how I read it. I mean, it seems to me pretty obvious from the tape that what the guy is doing is the lady says, I've looked at all these videos, and he's saying, yeah, you've looked at the videos. I know, we're all terrible, but we only kill black people, even according to the videos. So, get out of the car. Right, or use the phone. So he ends up being fired for this. This is a national story, okay? This led NBC News today. Here is a story about cop malfeasance that to me is significantly worse because this woman was a criminal and she ended up going to jail. This particular case comes out of, I believe, Texas. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Salt Lake City. And this is a video of a woman named Alex Wubbles. She is a nurse. And there was I have to give the backstory. There was a driver who was trying to get away from the cops. He was speeding in his truck trying to get away from the cops. He crossed over the median line, and he plowed headlong into a Mack truck. He was badly burned. He was in a coma, basically. And the cops come in. They're trying to absolve the other driver in the crash. They come into the hospital, and they say, we want to take his blood. Okay, it is illegal under Supreme Court precedent from 2016 to take somebody's blood without any sort of probable cause, without a search warrant, or without the permission of the person. Person's unconscious, and there's no search warrant. So the nurse says, listen, I may like you, but I can't let you take the guy's blood because that's illegal. Okay, they arrest her, and they brutalize her in the process. Here's the actual tape.
Okay. No, we're done. We're done. You're under arrest. We're going. We're done. We're done. I said we're done. We're done. You're under arrest. Hey. We're done. Sir, I had a Hey.
So they arrest her over nothing. She was never charged with a crime. They handcuffed her. They dragged her out physically. Okay, she was the one who was obeying the law. The cop wasn't. And here's the point of why I'm contrasting and comparing these videos. Most cop bad action has little or nothing to do with racism. It has to do with cops just being crappy at their jobs. Just like most of the things you do in your daily job have nothing to do with racism. If you do it wrong, it has to do with you being bad at your job. And if it happens, there's a black person in front of you and you're bad at your job, you might be accused of racism. The same thing happens with cops. Okay, Adam Carolla makes this point all the time, and I think that he's exactly right. If you're a black person getting pulled over by a cop and the cop was a jerk, he might immediately assume that it was because he was black. But being a white person who's pulled over by a cop, he knows that it's just because some cops are jerks. Right? I think that's a perfectly understandable perspective. And when you're a member of a minority group, that is the tendency. My father, my grandfather, I remember growing up, there would be times where somebody would be a jerk, and my dad would say, the guy's probably an anti-Semite. And I'd say, Dad, it probably isn't because he's an anti-Semite. It's probably just because he's an a-hole. Right? Like that happens. Like, people are jerks. I think that you're a jerk is a better explainer 95% of the time than you're a racist. And so even the guy in the first tape, it seems to me he's acting out of ignorance, stupidity, incompetence. He had 28, by the way, the evidence for that is that he had 28 years on the police force before he was fired, not a single instance in which he was accused of racism. So, that seems to me better evidence than that tape of sarcasm. But the point here is that bad police action, we would be better off talking about when police exceed their mandate, when police are brutal, when police are get out over what they are supposed to be doing, when police exceed the use of force, and when they do all those things, that seems to me a better explanation of police behavior than just blaming endemic institutional racism. I mean, Alex Webbles is white. They didn't stop the Salt Lake City cop from dragging her out for no reason. And if she'd been black, what would the headline have been? Right? If Alex Webbles had been a black lady, the headline would have been completely different, right? It would have been white officer drags black woman out of the ER. Black Lives Matters would have been marching. We would have been told that this was just unacceptable racism from the Salt Lake City Police Department. And we hear the same thing whenever there's a death. I remember out here in Los Angeles, in Orange County, there was a homeless white guy named Kelly Thomas, and he was beaten to death. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was beaten to death on the streets of Fulton, California by a bunch of cops. He was white. If he'd been black, that would have been a national story. It was like Rodney King level. I mean, it was worse than Rodney King because he actually died, Kelly Thomas. And he actually didn't do as much wrong as Rodney King. And it wasn't a national headline in the same way because he was white. Again, I think the same cops who beat Rodney King beat Kelly Thomas. And I think they're both wrong, but that's a different kind of wrong than racism necessarily.